little bit in significance, but there were some noteworthy games in the top 14, and we'll come on to Pro Day there a little bit later. None more so in terms of significance in the league standings than Perpignan versus Stade Francais. And as a round for the top 14, I can't remember, with the exception of I think the last two games, the late kickoffs, which had a little bit of a blowout vibe about them. The rest of it was incredibly nip tuck with a 1 pointer, a 2 pointer, a draw, and Stade Francais did not prevail
Yeah,
in this away at the Stade Émile.
the I was kind of catching up on the scores after cricket. So all the four multiplex games that ran concurrently, and you don't need to be much of a rugby fan to understand. I was kind of saying like, oh my god, like across four games, the total margin was 5 points. You don't need to be much of a rugby fan to know that that is incredibly squeaky. The big one was that was all the focus really was on the Perpignan Stade Francais one, and yeah, I think Perpignan probably the better side just from what I've seen. Discipline for Stade Francais again. Brooksy clocked one early doors. Have you seen
Yeah, he
that yellow
did.
card?
Yeah, it was a
He's
little.
lucky.
It was a little bit. It was not a huge amount of malice, but it was it Percenti,
Passanti, yeah,
who's.
but
I
that
mean,
is base. It ends up almost being like a full headbutt because of the way the kind of
yeah,
dynamics of the tackle. But yeah,
yeah, he
but
did
I
take
think
a
it
bit
was
of a blow.
three yellows for Stade Francais again. They're just in a battle with Racing and Bayonne are a little bit of a sneaky one for cards. I have to say they had a good card off against Racing. Um, yeah, I don't know what you want. A fantastic try by Villart
It was a lovely
in this
try.
game, which is probably the try of the weekend. Well, maybe two us over, but
Yeah,
couple like a missed kick towards the end from Zach Henry, tough one. But also Alan missed a few kicks or a kick that was very gettable. Yeah, I don't know what you want to say about this one, but
yeah. I think it, obviously it's so important, but it almost feels from the outside. And I didn't watch the whole game, so this is probably slightly off the mark, but it just feels like another like real hammer blow for Stade Francais, and the fact they've been so poor away from home, and yet in a big game against a team that pride themselves at home, albeit they're in a similar spot, have nearly snuck it, and they've had three yellow cards, and they've missed a kick, albeit a tough one towards the end, and it's just every kind of inkling you think is Stade Francais are going to find a way out. They seem to find a way to get themselves back in the mire. Um, and I mean, one thing this which did stand out was Makalu's interception try.
amazing,
Um,
amazing.
not you don't see many scrum halves get intercepted behind the 5 meter line.
Yeah.
It's
Do
actually
we count? Are we
pretty.
counting that as an own try?
I
Not
think
quite.
I think in another season where there hadn't been such bountiful proper own tries, it'd be up there. But I don't think it's going to make the cut this time. But it's a hell of like it's obviously there's a little bit of luck involved, but it's an unbelievable like effort and read just to go fuck it. I'm going to go and try and like snaffle this. But yeah, it's tough for Stade Francais, and they're just they're just
It's only
not moving up the table.
their second point away from home. I
Extraordinary.
think on I think on Stav, the feeling I got from this, and I have probably felt this for a couple of weeks, is that Perpignan have got something. Like they've got, it feels a game plan. Like the way that team is set up, they've got that pack. They've got Van Tonda back first time since September. He was brilliant, which is key. You've got Tuolangi off the bench. They've got now big blokes that they can bring off the bench. Like I know Berrier was on the bench, but in theory they could bring. Well, in this they brought Lamb, who was great off the bench against Van. Um, they can bring Berrier off. They can bring Tuolangi off. Ceccarelli. They've got big blokes they can bring off the bench, and then their back line. You've got the Fijians. You've got De La Fuente, and then you've got a couple of playmakers. And Hall giving it a bit of pace at nine in absence of Ekashard. You've kind of got big blokes, and then they're going to try and play with pace. And I quite like that as a game plan. They've got good goal kickers. whether it's Delpy or Allen, are two of the best in the league in terms of percentages. It seems like there's something there, and they are now also 3 points clear. With Stade Francais, I don't have that feeling. Do you
what
know what
they're
I mean?
trying to
Like
do.
it doesn't quite. They just cock it up so often.
Mm.
Like there was one point in the. I don't think it came to a try, but they've just like they've thrown a line out, and the Perpignan player is no one's got up. It's a kind of one that you don't have to jump for. Perpignan player's just taken it and then run like 40 meters because like there's not even like like normally when you cock up ones that people don't jump for, there's normally like a knock on or it hits
Yeah,
someone or like, it literally he literally chucks it to the Perpignan player and the guy runs 40 meters. There's no one even like marking. Like, it's not even anywhere near someone to kind of tackle him, and it's just
really abject.
the discipline as well is abject, and it just I don't quite see a game plan or a cohesion there that possibly the
Yeah,
other, certainly Van as well, have. Van's game plan is very, very simple, but they've got one.
yeah,
Like, and I just don't quite see that. Henry has played well the last couple of weeks and he's doing his best, but it's almost like there's only so much you can do in that game plan with the kind of quality of ball he's getting. Of kind of they're not using their backline
real,
really.
real lack of cohesion. There has been for ages, which is, I know we've spoken about how well they did in the top 14 last year, but it's such a, from a team that last year seemed to have such a clear identity, like really, brilliantly organized defensively, really, just really organized, almost kind of playing a little bit within themselves, if it makes sense. They were kind of very much the sort of like the antidote to the Toulouse flair and that sort of thing at the top of the table last year. It just
Yeah.
uh, at some point I have to have a proper look through and try and work out what's going on because it's one of the most extraordinary falls from grace I can think of in anything, to be honest with you.
And we've said this numerous times now, the second biggest budget in the league and potentially over the salary cap. And the guy, do you remember a while back we were like, oh, we're trying to work out who the players were that were nudging them over. The
Yeah,
one that
isn't it?
I've seen, the one I've seen is Johan Tanga. He's like the
Yeah,
real big, and he's barely played.
yeah, yeah. Did Tonga come
Um,
from La Rochelle?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But he
and then
came, but he was at La Rochelle for a couple of years, having been at Racing, right? I
I
think.
can't remember that, but yeah, it was Tanga and Carbonell were the two I'd seen rumored as like the real kind
Yeah.
of marquee signings. Um, yeah, it's a strange one. I suppose the thing that's perhaps a little bit of a saving grace, and I know we're going to do sort of a bit of a preview in a sec. They do have two home games to come.
Yeah.
One against Lyon next week, who you'd imagine will have, well, certainly based on their selection this week, one more than one eye on their Challenge Cup final. And then they finish at home to Cast,
Yeah,
which,
I
yeah,
think I tweeted something yesterday that they do just have the more favourable run in,
hmm.
um, depending on how you cut it. But yeah, do you want to go to Van or do you want to kind of let's go to Van and
Yeah, let's
then
go to Van, who there've been a few if buts and maybes at Van this year, haven't there? There have been games that, I mean, the one we went to last kick of the game, Tommy Allen against Perpignan.
that was also
And
10 points up with what
yeah,
10 minutes to go or something.
that was somewhat more of an implosion, wasn't it? There was obviously the balls up at home to Bordeaux when they took a massive lead and couldn't hold on. Then Clermont, I think they lost by a point too, and
Yeah, and they couldn't
probably
basically couldn't kept going backwards when they were trying to manufacture the drop goal, weren't they?
yeah, and they've been killed again on the buzzer by what must be said is a fabulous drop goal from Antoine Astoy.
So
Um,
I
but
saw I saw
gutting.
the top like so there's like the things we kind of reference quite a lot. There's the Rugby Rama team of the week and there's the top 14 like three players of the
Yeah.
round. And I think there's a little bit of by numbers here of just looking at scorecards, which is fine because you can't always watch every single game, especially when they put them out like Monday morning or whatever. Antoine Astoy was in that top three players of the weekend for the top 14. He had a very average game. Like, he was kicking balls dead, he missed a couple of kicks, but that drop goal, and also you could argue that his crossfield kick for the Lades try, which
Yeah, the little
Bosmaran
Bosmerand
does a
flick.
lovely flick back. Bosmaran's starting to come into it, kind of started to
Yeah, he is.
get a bit more comfortable, I think. But out, and you could argue that could have been a bit of a better crossfield kick, but that drop goal it's a brilliant drop goal because it's a snap decision, it's bang on the 80 minutes, they're quite a long way out, and he nails it.
Yeah.
And you kind of, and that's, I guess, we can kind of shoehorn some theories into it, like, oh, champion qualities, and Van don't have that kind of top level test match experience. Like, you look at that and you've got the best passer of the ball in the top 14 giving him that pass, or I would say the best passer of the ball in the top 14 in Kerbalo, giving him that pass, and he's got, because it's Kerbalo, he can go a long way back. There's no risk of a charge down, and they've got the decision making there. You've got a World Cup winning All Black. You've got a France player that played in the World Cup when they were favourites. It's two guys who have been there and done it a little bit. Although apparently I
Mm.
think that was Antoine Astoy's first drop goal in his career, which I am
Oh,
going to fact
really?
check. Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Decent execution. Yeah,
but you
it's
could just
just.
say it's maybe it could also be luck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
think. I
they
mean,
just happen to
again,
get it right.
yeah, you quite often see that go full paper bag and go nowhere, or it gets shanked or charged down or whatever. I think, yeah, credit where it's due for the execution. It's unbelievable. Um, and yeah, it's mad to think at the start of the season you would have seen a La Rochelle side quite that jubilant, having beaten Van, and also having come within that sort of distance of nearly having had the double done over them. But
Um,
it's just another. I really I feel for Van. It's two or three legit wins kind of snatched away at the very last minute, and yeah, I mean from here on out, I mean they're still going to have a chance, aren't they? Because they're playing some pretty good rugby. But I think they've only got one more at the Rabine,
yeah,
which is
Poe
against Poe. Um,
should be 4 points. I say
yeah,
with
you'd
a
think
Poe hat
so.
on.
Uh,
Um, Talking of Poe, Antoine Hastoy, it was his first drop goal for La Rochelle. It was his second one. He scored two for Poe, one of which we saw
ah,
the 6th of November 2021 at home to Biarritz.
against
So,
Biarritz. There you
yeah.
go.
He was brilliant in that game, to be fair. That was when we first kind of discovered him, wasn't he? He was fantastic.
He was the
Um,
coming man.
what I would say on Van, I mentioned their game plan is pretty simple. I think in this game, I don't know how much of it you've seen. I watched the whole thing. They are a completely different team, and they are arguably entirely reliant on Francis Saili. He has been so good this season, and I mean, we're probably still like almost 2 months away from doing our team of the season, but I've started to kind of put players into position. I started to have a think about, and it's hard to think of a guy that's been so good so often. And you look at this game, they didn't have him for the first 10 minutes because he was off within a minute for a yellow card, which on first viewing, like, oh, that's a bit harsh. And then you see, because Hastoy basically like sees him coming and kind of ducks, and Saili is also swinging his arm, but it's kind of ducking into a swinging arm. So I was like, oh, it's harsh. And then it's actually, no, the force of that arm is definitely worth something. Um, but I think, yeah, so they were, what, 12-3 down with him off the field in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Then he got taken off around fifth when Van went up, and I could be kind of putting two and two together and making five here, but when Van went up at 52 minutes, that's when he went off, and then he came back on after the missed conversion from Astor at 71. So Van then take the lead again with him on, and it could be, I'm using the facts to support my argument erroneously, but he's you're kind of like, hang on, is there a backs version of Saili and a forwards version of Saili? Like, it's that kind of, we've seen like from Fayanganuku, just like basically the first carrier in every time that they carry, and also like he's creating so much and defending, like making so many tackles as well. Just feels like he is. They can't do anything with. They
The
can't get over the gain
linchpin.
line without him. They they're not going to create anything without him. That sort of thing. Like it, just brilliant, brilliant player. Very very simple game plan. Quite boring if we're honest. And this was a fairly low quality game. There was a lot of kicking, a lot of kind of big blokes trying to be physical. La Rochelle do still have a little bit about them with Boudon, Jegu,
Yeah.
bit of dynamism to get. They've got a bit of dynamism in that Aldrit as well, in that back row that you don't get from Calamafoni, Edwards, and
No.
Gorison.
And to be fair to that, nor would you expect it. We've
No,
come up
no,
on
no, no.
a tiny budget from
Yeah, yeah, and
Africa.
I also think like part of that game plan is because of the budget. Because if you look at Bayonne when they first came back up, it was
Yeah,
Lopez and Machino just kicking them around the park, which lucky that they also had two international halfbacks to bring it. But yeah,
yeah. Um, the other team that we've spoken a little bit about, well, previously at the bottom, but appear to kind of be clear, although they do still reside in 11th, are Racing, who drew for the second time this year, both at home, I think. The last one was
yeah.
to Lyon, wasn't it? Um, and yeah, could well have lost. The Joris Sagons having nailed an even better drop goal. I don't know if you've seen that one.
It's a really cool
From
drop goal because it gets charged down, doesn't it?
and it's from a
Half
decent way
charged.
out. So I don't know
Yeah,
how far it was going before it got a little flick on and then hit the crossbar
bounced
on
over.
the angle. All sorts going on with that. But having nailed that and then nailed one from the touchline, he missed. I think it was the last kick of the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, 40 meters out, fairly straight, like literally
Pretty
like you
regs.
you you picture Joris Sagons this season kicking a goal, and that's basically where he's kicking it from. So we can't talk about this game without talking about the Tuasova try. It's amazing.
Incredible. It is incredible.
Also, like
Trail of bodies.
fair enough fending off like I think he fends off like Jean Musquez or like Guillaume Rouet. But towards the end, there is a hit that comes in from a certain Manu Tuilagi
He gets bumped.
on at thigh height, and it's literally up Tuilagi like hits his thigh and just hits the deck. Like it's
Yeah.
Tuasova is just concrete. And then he
Yeah.
like obviously like any other player in the world like does that and is like, oh my god, I've done something amazing. And he's just like, yeah. He gets up and he's like head down, like, yeah, cool, next job.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say in the case, and if you haven't seen that, try go and have a look. It's not the sort of thing you see in professional rugby very often. It's that kind of reminder. I genuinely think there are in top level rugby that there are fewer than a handful of players that can do that sort of thing. And it just so
Two of
happens
them were on
that
this pitch, and
they're on this
one of them
pitch.
got bumped.
One of them got absolutely crunched in it as well. Yeah, it's just raw power and
He needs to
angry
go into
running
that.
and limbs everywhere.
He needs to go on that run it straight thing.
Oh, I saw a clip of that the other day. It looks what is that about?
It's basically two. I saw I think it was Tom Burgess running at Nemani Nandolo, and I was like, oh, Tom Burgess in rugby league used to drop the ball the whole time. He runs at him and he fucking flattens Nandolo, and it's like, oh my god! Like Nandolo is
Jesus.
one of the bigger freaks to have ever played this century to have played rugby union, and yeah, some lad from Bradford has just flattened him.
Oh, I'm not sure
Um,
how I feel about a kind of retired Mandolo putting himself up for stuff like that, but I don't
I
know.
think he's
Maybe
only
there's
recently retired though. It's he started it. It's those two that they started this thing. I think Burgess and Nandolo, or they were like the big ones.
interesting.
Anyway, we digress. Good to see Racing with a few cards though. Tuasova did get one for an early tackle, which I think was semi-harsh. But nice try from Jean Musquez. It was a weird game,
Yes, it
I
was.
think, this game. But they should be clear now, right? Like they are
Yes, I don't think they're getting
They are
sucked
10.
in.
They are 10 clear of Stade. So Stade are currently in the access match slot. Racing are 10 clear with 3 games to go. I just can't see Racing. I can't see Stade winning 2 more games, 2 or maybe even
Two and
three
a
more
half
games than
games.
Racing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Um,
You
And then the
think they're out
final
of the
team that
woods?
was in the reckoning, which we've referenced very briefly, was Poe,
Mm.
who were relatively good value for this. Poe and I think Van are not second half teams. And I think there's an element of, well, Van you'd expect, fitness, conditioning, they're not used to the top 14. Poe is a young side. They have got better, but they still struggle back end of games. I say it was relatively comfortable. They needed a 76th minute penalty from Dalbanya, but I think Desperez he missed a conversion. I think he missed three penalties, like two hit the post, and I think a try might have come from one, but definitely like not his, having been player of the month for Poe in April and his goal kicking being fantastic. He was not fantastic in this game. But Poe played some good stuff. They kind of won scrum penalties. They mauled tries. I think the big conversation here is actually about Lyon and their
Yeah,
team selection.
I was really, really surprised. I know they just qualified for the Challenge Cup final, but given where they were in the league, and with no disrespect to Poe, like given the opposition as well,
Who
I,
are
I
who have won in the last 12 months have won one away game.
yeah,
Like
I I can't get my head around it. And they've now kind of slid out of those barrage places, have been overtaken by La Rochelle
and
and
Montpellier.
Montpellier, who obviously beat
They are
Bordeaux on
three
Sunday
behind
night.
both of them.
And Cast and Clermont have a game in hand there. So I found the whole thing, and I don't know if there's more to it. They're just going all in on the Challenge Cup and giving guys 2 weeks off. Um, I don't know, but it was not the side I was expecting to
Maybe
see.
Gazal is because Brad Weber was on commentary on Sunday night, who I thought was really good actually, and he was talking about how Stade were playing Lyon next week, I think, and there was a kind of joke between him and Robbie Knock that maybe there'd be a text to Karim Ghazal to pick a weakened side, pick the
Okay.
Espoirs for the game at Stade Jean-Bouin. But I don't know, maybe Ghazal is actually kind of keeping the big guns so that he can have a big fu to Stade Francais and the
Perhaps.
Stade Francais side. But it wasn't like it's a proper shags that like there's all well and good kind of maybe you kind of put Kuyo on the bench or whatever. Like starters wise, it was Mariku, Chapchet has played a lot of 15. Maybe one or two of the forwards, I think. But
Yeah, strange.
Liam Allen, Garachi, but like Rattez and Parisian have played a bit. But like a lot of like names that have barely played any rugby.
Mm.
And they surely would have known that Poe were going to get at least Gaetan back. They probably would have known that Maddox was going to come back. So you've got a Poe side and Lucas Ray's been back. Like they suddenly kind of got all their big names back, pretty much apart from Joe Simmons MBE. You should have known that they were going to go fairly strong for this because
Yeah.
they've got nothing else to play for other than their own survival in top 14. Players coming back. Strange, really strange. Great news for Poe, obviously. Second away win of the season. They are now 11 clear of Stade Francais. They've got an interesting set of fixtures. But again, kind of like Racing, they should be far enough ahead of Stade and Van to because that if they hadn't won that Van away game suddenly looks quite
Yeah.
key. But they've
100%.
various points Poe have managed to build a buffer ahead
I
of the
think
pack.
this is, yeah, as you said, we said it a couple of weeks ago. You were like, there's a real chance Poe don't win another game from here, and they
Yeah,
can get dragged in quickly. Whereas I think this gives them just that little leg up that was needed, perhaps.
yeah, which they've
Um,
managed to do periodically throughout, really.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. They deserve to be clear of that bottom pack without a shadow of a doubt. Speaking of slightly weakened sides with one eye on Europe, on European glory, Bordeaux got a bit of a spanking down at Montpellier, 46 20 odd
27.
27. They were 31-3 down within half an hour in this game as well, which
Yeah,
is getting on for, what could the damage be sort of vibes. And as you mentioned earlier, Montpellier have just snuck up into that last barrage spot currently, just tucked in behind there on Cass, albeit having played one more game. Um, yeah, doing pretty well. Anthony Boutier, I think it was at 10.
Yeah, Anthony
Um,
Boutier. I think that was the big one of the big stories for me. Anthony
hmm.
Boutier at 10, Hugo Royce not on the infirmary list. I kind of thought, no hog. This is Hugo Royce's chance to grab the team by the balls and not even making a squad, which is a shame because it feels like a good chance to blood a youngster or at least give him some game time off the bench. But the Virat Kohli, Anthony Boutier combo was
Worked nicely.
Leo Colley, who Brad Weber was calling Kohli, presumably a big Virat fan. Um, Leo Colley was fantastic. His box kicking was great. I'd say there were four players in this that were just phenomenal, which was uh, Colley, Nushi, Mostan, and Boutier. Some of Boutier's
Hmm.
kicking we know is fantastic, but he looked good at 10. He looked like a proper
Yeah,
fly
yeah.
half, and actually running a bit more than they have done in the past. But obviously, similar game plan with a fly half who's got a massive boot as when they had Hoggy at 10. But yeah, I thought Leo Colley was great. Some of his box kicking was fantastic. It's a simple game plan, but Nushi was doing absolutely everything, running over people, line
An
out work,
amazing
tight
offload,
work,
wasn't there?
offloading. Yeah, it's like that famous Dylan Lade one.
Yeah.
Well, a slightly budget version of the famous Lades one back when he was in the Stormers against Chiefs. And Mustan was great, really active, got off his wing, good finisher, quick, cool,
Former
good.
Bordeaux player.
Yeah, former Bordeaux player. So they've got two wingers that
Hmm.
because they've not seen much of Madosh,
I was
have
thinking
we?
that. I was thinking that. Hopefully, it's. I don't know. Hopefully, I say hopefully injured. I mean, in the sense of, I'd love to think that he hasn't just fallen totally out of favour because he's
Yeah.
such an amazing player when he gets it right.
The crossfield kick. George Bridge has been underwhelming, I'd say. For that
For
he
quite a while at Montpellier.
strikes me as a player that was good because he happened to be playing in the Crusaders and the All Blacks. I also think he's a bit of a loose cannon, so maybe he's just enjoying France. Um, but the crossfield kick, he is very good under the high ball still, and the crossfield kick from Boutier to Bridge for that try is about as pinpoint as you can
Hmm.
get in terms of how flat it was and how risky it was. It was lovely. Um, also, Christopher Tolifer playing tight head in this one off the bench, which was
Oh, was it?
and actually managed to get Talfa re-subbed, I think, for Boniface. But yeah, well done Montpellier. They've got an interesting run in, but we'll do the run in a bit. The bigger game, well, the big showpiece game of the weekend was Toulon v Toulouse, which,
Did you catch the whole thing?
yeah, quite frankly, it was ruined by the referee. I'd say. I'm not one to say refs ruin games or decisions ruin games. Obviously, there's a 34-point margin here. Like that, it's hard to say that was all down to the referee. However, and actually somehow the penalties conceded, there was only 14 for Toulon and 11 for Toulouse, which felt not what I was seeing with
Feels
my
light.
eyes. It like they were just so sharp on the whistle against Toulon. Um, they were down to 13 men within 9 minutes. The Aberdeen yellow card, I don't know what was for, but I think it was like diving over a ruck near the line. But to kind of dish out a yellow card like that within 8 minutes is
Within, yeah,
interesting.
bit
The
officious.
first Saran one, he is clearly trying to drag it down. I guess the the debate there is over the penalty try because they still get the ball down. Do you give? Surely you just bin the player. So Saran gets the yellow, and I think that yellow kind of fair enough because it's quite cynical. But Toulon were kind of chasing the game from that point. They get to 13-14, which is good at half time. But the key point two things in that first half. Paul Costs on Baptiste Saran. No, don't think it was on Baptiste Saran. Can't remember who it was on. But Paul Cost tackle on 24 minutes. I think it might be Saran actually. Have you seen it?
Over the horizontal net.
Mate, not even like basically vertical. I don't know like how that I don't know who
Where
the
was
commentator was. I don't know who the
where
commentator
was
was because it wasn't Angus Torode or Robbie Knock. It was the other one. I don't know. I can't remember his name. But he was like, when Saran got the second yellow for the red, it's like it seems bizarre that he is now off the field for the rest of the game, but Cost
yeah,
isn't, because the whole point of these cards for red cards, and it started with Sam Warburton and Vincent Clerc, the tip tackle, you land on your neck, that's dangerous. That is potentially life threatening. You are giving that card in the same way for these high tackles to change the behaviour and prevent it happening. Paul Cost has done this already this season. There was one spear tackle or over the horizontal earlier on in the season. I can't remember it, but I feel like he got a yellow and was quite lucky.
yeah,
This, the only reason why he doesn't get the red is because he lands on his shoulder, which is basically because he's just trying to get his arm out. It is very, very close to him landing on his head,
yeah.
and he's driving him downwards. It is about a
It's
stonewall red
pretty black
card,
and white.
as you will see, for a tip tackle at least. He should be off the field. Like, okay, fine. They still go down to 14 for 10 minutes, and Toulon scoring that time. The Serran second yellow. This goes back to should the whole wider debate of should two yellows for different offences be a red card in rugby? Because football, it's there because it's kind of repeated fouling and it's cynical. There's red cards should be for foul play, really. There is the only reason why we have two yellows equals a red in rugby is because of football, basically. And I would say, well, people are saying, have you seen this? The second yellow.
I haven't. I actually haven't seen this. I've seen debate. I saw my phone going off about it, but enlighten me.
So they are,
I was also sorry, just while you explain that, I was just re-looking at the Paul Costs one, and the pictures are so blatant. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's extraordinary.
The So it's just before half time. I think Toulon give away a penalty for offside. There's a tap and go, and they're kind of going towards the line. They are on the line, and Merkler is about to pick up the ball and dot it down, but he knocks it on at the base. And actually, I think he puts it down, but there's a knock on before that. And the Toulon players are like, oh, he's knocked it on, he's knocked it on. So they go and look, and they look if it's a knock on or if there's a deliberate act. There is a foot that happens to hit the ball around the time that Merkler picks up the ball. That foot belongs to Baptiste Serran, who has already received a yellow card. And it is decreed after a couple of replays that that foot was, from that Baptiste Serran, was deliberate, which, and the commentator, again, I can't remember who it was like, I think they should probably have another look at that to see if how deliberate it was. If it, basically, Serran is, he can't see the ball. No doubt does Serran's kit, a boot, kind of flick up and happen to get into the area of the ball, perhaps slightly unnaturally. However, he can't see the ball. He also has the weight of Josh Brennan coming onto him that he's trying to evade. If he is trying to get the ball, he has done it unsighted and timed it absolutely perfectly. And it's kind of like, I don't know.
He's pretty good though.
He is good. He's a magician. He is a magician. Like, and this is the proof that he is, because
Yeah.
people are really
Okay.
conclusive about this being deliberate. And the
Not
fact he's
convinced.
unsighted and trying to wriggle out of under the weight of an 18 stone, 19 stone man and times it perfectly, magic. I think, okay, you could say it's cynical, but it just feels wrong that a bloke is then off the field for something that is, you can't, in those images, you can't determine intention.
Yeah.
Like we
And the
talk about
fact
like
it's for a
red
yellow
cards
card
and
as well.
malice and like, I think penalty, fine. Penalty, absolutely. But I think to categorically say it's intentional, therefore it's a yellow card, is a stretch. And the fact that that yellow then leads to a red is perhaps, well, is
Feels
unjust.
very unjust.
So it's 13-14 at half time, but Toulon are down to 14. They've lost their best player, their playmaker. They did at half time bring on Donglot, and they also brought on Bigger, which I quite liked as a move, kind of bringing on your yeah, another like an actual leader and playmaker. And it finished, well, the second half would have been 36-3 to Toulouse. Toulouse
Mm.
did play some wonderful rugby. The Chocobares try with an offload out the back from, or round the back of the defender from Capuozzo was fantastic. Saito was brilliant, and made the team of the week. I thought he played with really, really good pace. The man who seemingly can do everything but nothing, Paul Grau, stepped in at 10 from 20 minutes. So Entomac went off with a HIA.
Yeah.
Paul Grau played 10. He missed a few conversions. He was absolutely nailing it, but just nowhere near the posts. Striking it gloriously about 10 metres wide. But he did eventually find his range and started slotting them.
Nice.
Barassi was great. LaBelle scored a brilliant try. They played some brilliant rugby. But I do think in that, the more the game went on, the more it was like Toulon got that sense of
They're
fit.
playing
We're
that
playing
kind of unjustness that then leads to yeah, I know exactly what you're
every
saying. Like,
time.
everyone
Every
always
time
look at
there's a
each other
player,
like, well, what's the point? Like,
yeah. Every time the player's like not releasing, or someone's gone straight off their feet, or sealed off, and you're like I mean, I'm a neutral in this game. I was starting to be on. I quite wanted Toulon to be the better side because they're an underdog. Quite like the fact that it'd be quite cool if they challenged Bordeaux for the second place. Blah blah blah. I felt like I was on their side because it
mm,
just felt. It's like when I feel like we've used this reference before when you're in cricket when like you're convinced the umpire is just on their side and he's never going to give you out, going to give them out when you're bowling, and it's just like, well, what's the point in appealing almost? And they
I
did it definitely. And Toulon,
was
yes, mentally, should they be, if they're going to win championships, they've got to be mentally stronger than that, blah, blah, blah. But I do think I can understand where they came from. Toulouse were great, but my God, they were helped out. I don't think
yeah,
this is quite the implosion from Toulon that it looks like. And I don't think it's quite the, oh my God,
the
Toulouse are
statement.
unbelievable. Yeah, I don't think it's quite that, which has been a lot of people looking at scoreline and being like, Toulouse, unbelievable. This is the depth. Like, look at the team they sent. Look at the team Bordeaux sent. That is why Toulouse is so much better. Blah blah blah. I think that's all overblown. Is my point.
Yeah,
Rant
perhaps.
over.
It was also a pretty good.
It was quite a good Toulouse team.
It's a good Toulouse team, right? Obviously, they have brilliant depth, but there's some guys there who are, yeah. There's of that 23, there's quite a few who would play in a top 14
I
final.
think players
It's not
actually.
like that La Rochelle game months ago.
No, I think players actually fully rested were basically Malia, Willis, and Aki.
The cross play.
Cross played. It was Cross for Castro
No, yeah, it
Ferreira
was.
and
Yeah, yeah.
Jalonch. So
Brendan Flower. Yeah,
like yeah, and Marchand, which is understandable because they've only got one hooker, really, or one main hooker. But they were all the other guys were all on the bench.
mm,
And Entomac went off injured. So it was like, they've got injuries to Ramos, Kinghorn, a lot of players. So yeah, it wasn't a full shags. And Remu went off, which is so Capuozzo went to 15. Barassi came onto the wing, and that was why they had to play Grau at 10.
got
Because they
you.
didn't really. But yeah, they still. I mean, it was kind of weird. It was kind of like the opposite of the last week. It's like, oh no, they can all just slot in at some sort of position and be good, whatever. Capuozzo was great
Yeah, his form
for a
this
man that
season has
supposedly broke
been
his leg like
pretty
4 weeks ago.
remarkable. Yeah. I think that rounds it off. Where do we want to? We've sort of semi-previewed some of like the state of play and some of next week's antics. Cast have to travel to Bordeaux, which I dare say might be a good week to go to the Chaban Del Mas,
Especially with
given
all the
what's coming
emotion
up
as
the
well.
week afterwards. So yeah, maybe a little glimmer there. Where are we looking at the bottom? That's where it's interesting, isn't it? Stade
Well,
Francais hosts Lyon, which
yeah. I mean, we talked about what team are Lyon going to send. They've got to win that. They've got to win that. They're not going to
I
win
think they
away at
will.
Clermont, and they're not. They've got a tough one potentially with Cast in the final one.
Depending on the state of play in particular.
Yeah,
It's interesting that I know we're a couple of weeks ago, but that last round does feel like a lot of how that goes could yeah, as it often is, like hinges on what comes before it. Do you guys
yeah.
get like a particularly for the top six? if Cast are scrapping for a barrage place, yeah, probably fancy it.
Like
Whereas
Perpignan could
Toulouse,
be lucky. They host Toulouse. Toulouse could send the kids,
yeah,
and Perpignan should be enough if they're fighting for their lives because of the physicality they've got. I think the interesting one that I mean, obviously a side that we've not spoken about loads this week for obvious reasons, but Clermont are currently 4 points behind La Rochelle and Montpellier, so they are with a game in hand. But the teams they play, they've got Perpignan at home. They then have their game away at Cast. They then play Stade Francais at home, and they go to Montpellier. So I think Montpellier and Clermont play a lot of the teams in and around them.
mm,
Montpellier go to La Rochelle next week. So it's kind of like that barrage is going to be interesting because they're all kind of playing each other, which is, I know that's kind of law of averages when there's like
or it
4 or 5
works,
teams in the mix. Yeah.
but particularly
Um,
so, it's
yeah.
particularly squeezed.
Um, and Bordeaux potentially don't win another game. Oh, no, they got Van in the last game, last one. But yeah. Um, what do you think? So Perpignan go away to La Rochelle. No, they don't. Perpignan go away to Clermont next week, and Van go away to Bayonne.
Mm.
So that is clearly the week for Stade to get a win to jump up above those two sides. Cards on the table, Richard. Who finishes second?
Second bottom
No,
or
second.
second.
3 games to go.
I think I think Toulon
I think Toulon purely because of
because
that
Bordeaux have got
game.
their eye on, well, because of that game, but also they will host Bordeaux the
Yeah.
week after they potentially, Northampton will have a big say, but potentially win a Champions Cup final.
Well, either way, that's at the Mile where they're
Yeah,
unbeaten in the top 14, and it's after a game, whereas Toulon will have a break. I think that's the key one.
yeah, I think that's
Uh,
probably the kicker there.
Barrage is going to therefore be Bordeaux, Bayonne, and who else? Cast and
Rochelle, La Rochelle play 2 home games. I think that's probably what
yeah,
it'll be.
I think it could well be La Rochelle, which is remarkable. Bottom three, how's it finishing?
I
All of
I
this will be wrong. We
think.
should say to listeners, this will be entirely wrong.
So look at the last three. So I think it will be a Van coming bottom. I think it's going to be really tight, but I think it's going to be Van and then Perpignan in the access match place, and then Stade just to squeak out that by
I
virtue of having a couple of home games in that last three. And where have Perpignan got to go the week after? They've got to go to La Rochelle, as you mentioned.
so I think one win for Perpignan being the last game. I reckon. I think
One win for
possibly
Perpignan, one win for Van,
being Poe.
being Poe, and I think 2 wins for Stade Francais.
You reckon they'll beat Cast on the last day?
Yeah, I do. I
I
think there's a
think
decent chance Cast might already have their sixth place by then.
I think Perpignan may get enough bonus points. I think it will finish Van 14th, Stade Francais 13th, Perpignan 12th. I just think Perpignan have got more about them, as I said earlier, and Stade don't. Slash, I'm also hoping. That's kind of what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
More of hope
Yeah, who
than
knows?
expectation.
Who knows? Right, that's plenty on the top 14.